You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching the Meta Show.
I think the same, no?
Yes!
We're
We're live! We
We're
did
live
it!
now.
I didn't break it!
Excellent. Congratulations, everybody. So here we are. We have a big-ass show here for everybody today, and it's sort of awesome. We'll be introducing our guests in a minute, but I'm pretty pumped to have Loriana Lee from Dreamfleet here, because Dreamfleet, of course, was involved in a massive killing of Loseknaya Shalupin.
Yeah, we're gonna completely skip the order in which we do our show normally, because this is holy cow.
Yeah, so that's happened, but we're gonna go through and well, actually, you know, let's go through the normal order. We'll do the top story, then we'll do Null's like Power Hour, just because something happened. Like, so yeah, we've got a great show. Boat has been looking to do a Diplomats of Eve show for months now, I think. Boat.
Yeah, so a while back I wanted to get Marana on and like Pen of Smash and Lace Cart and all them, and they all said no. And so Marana gave me Twizzle Spark here and was like, he can find you Diplos. So Twizzle Spark spelled like each week it would be like, okay, we're gonna have him this week, and he'd come back with, oh, I got stuff to do, I can't. Then the next week would happen, he'd be like, nah, I got testing, yep, I can't. Then he came on this week and he was like, so Boat, you're gonna kill me, but my testing got pushed back a week, so I'm definitely not gonna make it today. Well, obviously here he is. So, and then he brought every Diplo he could find. Like he went around and asked, I guess NC Dot turned us down, PL Diplo turned us down, and so we didn't get
the people who hate us turned us down.
Yeah, but what's ironic too, because their CEOs will come on, like Vince and Elise and those guys will come on, but not their Diplos. So yeah, so Twizzle Spark brought us a wonderful cast of Diplos. It's going to be kind of hilarious. So do you want to?
Well, let's get some introductions.
Yeah.
Let me start with Dran. Of course, has a camera. So Dran, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us what you do and how's life?
Howdy, Dran Arcana, head Diplo. Test Alliance, please ignore. Apologies in advance for accosting your eardrums with the sultry pitch and intonation of a 12-year-old black girl, but it's the opinions that matter, right?
Okay. And we have Loriana Lee. Why don't you say hello?
Hey, guys.
And who are you?
I'm CEO of Dreamfleet and one of main FCs of Red Menace Coalition. So I'm always drunk, mad, Russian beer FC.
Excellent.
So he's like the CEO and Diplo and the FC. It's so good. I love it.
Trigid.
Hello, everybody. I am Trigid, the executive of Iron Armada and the head Diplo.
You mean Fleep?
Fleep, yes.
Fleep.
That's excellent. What does Fleep come from anyway?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Okay, so it's so dumb. I never expected Iron to work. Anyways, basically, it's a misspelling of fleet, because when you get really shit-faced and need to go on a roam and you like your mouth doesn't work properly, sometimes a fleet comes out, and we just all the tickers in the game are taken. So, you know, what can you do?
So instead of Dream Fleet, he has Dream Fleep.
And Twizzle Spark, why don't you say hello?
Hello, I'm Twizzle Spark. I am diplomat for Goonstorm Federation. Rana has no fun role, so she's not going to come on any kind of show, so I decided to come along today.
Well, thank you for joining us. So yeah, what we're going to be talking about today, we're going to be talking, first of all, the top story will be going through just talking about what it's like to be a diplomat in EVE. You know, what makes for a good diplomat, what makes for a bad diplomat, I'm eager to ask them what their crazy stories are, because every diplomat has usually a insane story of like a terrible experience that was horribly, well, just weird shit happens.
Pyoki!
And yeah, and then we're going to be talking about you know, obviously, Null's like Power Hour, we're going to be talking about Loseknaya Shalupin getting Shalupined and going through Alpha Clone, big changes there with the Arms Race patch. So lots of shit going on. Yes, tell me about your cherry picking policy. Maybe we can do some real time, a live policy update like we did last show.
It's gonna be interesting because there's some things we're gonna make fun of too that CCP has put in that's kind of unnoticed. Like for example, they put in some bubble changes and they look cool, but they didn't tell anyone, and they look absolutely amazing.
I'm according to Jay, who is working as our producer now. He's saying that we should be starting with the news and then going to the guests instead of the other way around. So
where do you say this?
You're going to be right after all, as we're going to talk about. I guess the top story will be the news, which is the Los Ignaya thing, and then we'll go to the guests.
We'll just we'll mock our enemies. That should be like a new segment. Mock our enemies before we do a top story. So today's mocking of our enemies is brought to you by the wonderful Dreamfleet and Snuffbox. Apparently, Dreamfleet and Snuffbox have yet again, for the second time, baited Null Second Nihilus Lupin. The first time, apparently, it was with an Erebus. They got him to drop an Erebus or Avatar or something like that, and then they got him, and then they did this time with a Hell. And it's actually kind of perfect that we have a Dreamfleet representative here, because he's going to tell us all about the wonderful exploits of this bait and switch that they pulled off. So, Loriana, tell us what happened. How'd you get him?
Oh, around a week ago or so, we got poked by our inner hell friend. He told he's getting camped in his hell stolen from a triumvirate by no session Shalopin. We think about betting them. He tried to log in for a whole week, and always we tackled him. Hector's unlining around gate, so he can't get away. He refitted himself with an Esther, and today he locked in before downtime. We jumped on him with Titan. He tanked 2 Doomsdays, some volleys from Mothership, and after downtime somehow we tried to log in back. Sadly only 1 Titan locked, but after that we blocked our super and counter-jumped them. Because we were bad. Really bad. Logging after downtime with supers.
That's excellent.
I understood about half that, and that's what makes it great. I love it. But yeah, so if we're looking at the battle report for you all like to see this, it's amazing because they killed an Erebus, they killed 4 super carriers, all of their dreads, and their tackle ships, and they just got fucking baited. And rarely do you see this. Like, rarely do you see someone, like, in a Hell, a shield super, tank this. I love shield supers.
Loriana, I got a question about that fight, bud. Did any actually get away?
Only 1 avatar which didn't locked in. And everything on gate was tackled and killed.
The only thing that got away was the guy that never showed up.
We even talked about that, guys. How this guy came around 30 minutes or so back. Hey guys, what happened when I was away?
Oh, that's awesome. For those that don't remember, Dreamfleet is pretty old now. Dreamfleet were the guys that had really big tight numbers back during the October War, I believe it was. And was that the offspring of that? Was it Dreamfleet?
I think, are you talking about Darkness of Despair?
Yeah, they split off into Dreamfleet, right?
Well, I mean, let's ask Loriana the history of Dreamfleet, because he's the leader of Dreamfleet. So tell us about the history of your alliance.
We were members of Solar Fleet. You should know about this alliance. And once Master told some shitty things to me and other our members, told us we can do anything we want. And we left Solar Fleet because of probably he didn't think we can do this. But we done this, created our own alliance, and some core corporations from Solar Fleet followed me. So yeah, we got a pretty big numbers of supers. Now most of them are offline, but I believe we can get around 30 or 40 supers if we try it very hard. So yeah, it's old Russian supers.
That's excellent. And of course, for people who are unaware, Master is in Cyrillic, it's spelled out as Maktep, so English-speaking players will often refer to him as Maktep, but if you actually phonetically, it's Mastater.
I just recognized Alpha Corporation.
That's leader of Solar Fleet, of course. So
yeah,
that's how that all happened. So schisms Gotta love it. Of course, the original
Yeah.
Solar Fleet was part of a schism from Red Alliance. Red Alliance broke up into Legion of Death and Solar Fleet as the two big schisms from RA originally.
Yeah. So yeah, that's
Interesting
awesome.
shit.
That's interesting. So now we move on to our top story. Finally, thanks, Jay. And our top story today brings us to our wonderful diplomats. And we have representatives from Fleet, Tess, Goons, and RMC. RMC, Red Menace Coalition, which is our Dream Fleet representative here. Red Menace being Dream Fleet and Red Alliance. So yeah, let's jump right in here. Right away, I'm gonna ask, how is it that you guys have never appeared on shows? Like, why don't diplomats ever come around?
Well, I've never been invited, so, you know, not really my fault I've never been here before, just saying.
I've actually come on Metaship before, but
Repeatedly.
Oh, that's right, you have. Never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was,
All right, so I'll ask a different
you
question.
go ahead.
Which
Sorry.
is more fair. So one of the things I just like to go around here as an intro is, you know, what is it that you find to be the most interesting thing about being a diplomat for your alliance? And since Dran was pointing out that he's never been invited, Dran, why don't you start out? What do you think is the most interesting thing about being a diplomat in Test?
It just shit changes every day. Like, you know, a lot of positions, you know, a lot of space jobs, right? You know, logistics, FC. It's, you sort of know what's going to happen the next day, right? You know, there's a timer. Okay, gotta go on the timer. You know, we might get dropped. You know, there might be supers, might be subcaps, there might be blue balls. You at least sort of have an idea what's going on. As a diplomat, it's just everything is always crazy. Like, you know, you'll be sitting in Diplo office. Somebody will come in and be like, "Hey, you guys are pieces of shit, and you just made a new bro quit the game." And I'm just, "Oh, I'm sorry. What happened?" And then you get a link to a stream that has like 3 followers, and apparently we killed this streamer in high sec once, and she got mad and quit the game. And then it's just like, you just go down this rabbit hole of like, what even is this? But it's always that, even if it's legitimate. If it's somebody hitting you up from another alliance, or somebody hitting you up from a high sec mercenary corporation, or anything, you never know what's going to come at you, and that's what I love about it.
Always having something different. That makes sense. Trigid, what's it like? I mean, you know, Dran, of course, is speaking for Test. What are the sort of things that you've had to deal with in a diplomatic capacity for Fleet? And maybe you could tell us one of the crazier stories you've encountered.
Well, one of the things, kind of to answer you, DBRB, about earlier why I've never been on this particular show is that Iron tends to float below the radar on a lot of the stuff that happens within EVE, and part of that is due to just our sheer smallness in comparison to like all of the gargantuan coalitions and whatnot. So a lot of the times, like Dran or, you know, Twiz, you guys, you're coming into a diplomatic meeting with people usually from either a position of power or a position of at least an equal status of something with someone. Whereas quite often I'll get diplomatic conversations that are more along the lines of some guy trying to bully me. And so there's been some funny things in the past like that, but what it has really done for us, us being Iron, is it's really driven home that there is like a perception, and people don't know who you are without like a close encounter with you or something like that. And so people look at some basic stats, like how many people that we have in the alliance on Dotland or something like that, and then they make an assumption about us, and then they try to bully us in some way, or they try to tell us to do this or that or the other thing. And then, you know, sometimes we ignore them, sometimes we turn around and punch them in the dick. Like there's so many different reactions that can happen from that kind of stuff, and it really surprises people sometimes.
Do you want to, like you were saying that you're often in a situation where people try to bully you or your organization, Have you found a way to turn that into an advantage? Is it something that you think just sucks, or you want to change something about it? How do you leverage that in a way that benefits your alliance when you encounter situations like that?
Well, honestly, there's a few things that go through, but it all depends on the objective. Like, as an example, a handful of years ago, when I guess the first time that Twiz and the GSF Diplo team would have heard of us is when we negotiated through the SMA Diplos. We negotiated right before the patch that we wanted to take some space in Cloud Ring, and the reason why I did that is because I wanted to learn firsthand the new soft system that was coming out and whatnot. And so we negotiated from a position of SMA has no idea who we are. We're like some small little corporation. Like, who the fuck do we think we are, kind of deal? And we just talked very nicely through it. And when there's like a little bit of bluster from them, a little bit of like arrogance and you know, condescending stuff that is said, it's, you just gotta, you know, water on a duck for that, right? And then on the flip side of that, sometimes there's groups that will like point their fingers at you and be like, who the fuck do you think you are? You're, you know, a little 300-man corporation. What are you trying to do? Whatever. And then, like we were talking about earlier, that's one of those moments where it's like, oh, you really? How about you go, you know, how about you go fuck yourself, kind of deal. And then it turns, you know, to conflict.
Ooh.
Interesting.
So fuck yourself. I like it.
He's not wrong. People will judge you based on your size and what they perceive your capability to be. I remember starting diplomacy out in Test when Test was, you know, literally throwing like 25-man Ishtar fleets, and that was a strat op for us. And diplomacy was a very different game back then, right? You know, you come into a region or you enter a room, and there's no presumption of respect. It's just, who the fuck are you? What are you doing in my channel? And what do you want from me? What can you do for me? I don't really care what you want yet, but what can you do for me? And now, you know, when you're in that large position of power, it's a lot. People treat you a lot differently.
Have you? I mean, just sort of for context, how big is Test's diplomatic corps now? Like, how many diplomats do you guys have on staff?
We have a couple that sort of rotate in and out, but at any given time, there's probably a good 7 to 9 on staff. And honestly, our Diplo team hasn't really grown all that much since we were small. The size of the diplomacy department was kind of built around the Fountain era picture of Test. And when we got small, we still had about 10 diplomats, and now that we're fuck huge again, we still have about 10 diplomats. It's really more an issue of trust than it is workload.
Gotcha. We haven't heard from Twizzlespark yet. I know that he's a longtime Meta Show guest, so I want to bring that over to you, Twiz. And what is it? What have you found? I guess a question here. We talk about how there's diplomats, diplomatic teams. You started as a regular diplomat, and now you're a director. Have you found that there's a difference in sort of a larger organization from being a regular diplomat, from being a diplomatic director, as you sort of go up in the ranks, or is it still sort of the same thing every day?
When you move up rank in the diplomatic department, then you have to fill in a role as a manager on top of what you're doing. What I've always tried to do is I've always tried to not lose touch, so I kept on talking to the people I did before I got promoted, and I think that kind of mindset is the correct way to go. You would hear about some diplomats in EVE who kind of boast around how they no longer log into EVE and they can now play the game and they're all different and this and that. But me and Marana share the opinion that we should always stay away from that kind of attitude, because we are diplomats or EVE. We need to know the game and we need to interact with the people who are playing this game. So yeah, you just can't have different attitudes just because we are quote unquote more space important than before.
So, is that why like you lost your Aeon that one time? Because you decided to go on and off and warp back to a gate without being told to warp back to a gate?
No, my Aeon was bugged.
Yeah, you were teleported.
Yeah, I know, you got
that was-
teleported, but it's just funny to bring up.
That was some pretty serious bullshit. I don't know. There's this one guy in chat who seems to be really angry that I'm not asking all the diplomats the exact same question and how I'm trying to turn it into a pissing contest. But maybe that's just some random person. I mean,
Yeah.
let's. What did I ask first? What was it? I already lost track.
You asked them what
was
their
the most interesting.
Yeah. So I want to ask them about their. I use this word because, again, this is. I'll go ahead and give some context here. When I say eat a dick, I remember a long time ago when I was in FC having to deal with the old Northern Coalition, and there was those like hanger-on alliances who would come around and did not like us, so they would think that they could just tell us to fuck off. And I remember Valrat came in one time and was like, "Y'all can eat a dick, or I'll blow you up. Like, you could just stop doing what you're doing, eat a dick, or I will just blow you up, and we'll just come murder you, and that'll be that." So the question I have for our Diplos here is, what is your eat a dick moment? When's that one time you got to just say, you know what, fuck you, eat a dick, goodbye? Now, I guess we'll go around the room. So we'll start with the test guy, Mr. Test Guy.
Oh man, I saw the question prompt, and I've been thinking about it for the last like 15-20 minutes, and it's so petty, but I love it so much. So we fucking and he's gonna hate me for this. He probably doesn't even remember it. Guy by the name of Chuggy.
What?
The guy who does the maps, the influence maps, Chuggy.
Oh, that Chuggy, right?
Yeah,
So
that guy.
He was a corp CEO of a decently sized corp. I can't remember the name of it. What was it? Windrammers, I think. Windjammers. One of those is an arcade game. One of those is this corp, and I can't remember which. But he comes into test, applies with his corp. Passes all the normal TIA hoops, comes in, and like 5 days after coming in, he just like vanishes, just poof, like a fart in the wind. And this dude comes into Diplo office, is like, "Hi, I'm a new CEO in test. What do I need to do?" I'm just like, what? What do you mean you're a new CEO in test? What the fuck does that mean? Well, it turns out, Chuggy had vanished and just handed it to some random guy in the corp, and like just left. And the corp had no leadership. It completely fell apart within a couple of weeks. But it kind of left like a really bad taste in my mouth. Like I had done really well on corp recruitment. Like it was sort of a thing for the line diplos at the time, like who could recruit the better corps, right? So it was sort of a competition, and I had always prided myself on having good instincts about corps. And so it kind of pissed me off a little bit. And so he left for a wormhole corp that eventually joined Phoebe Freeport Republic, which were our northern neighbors at the time when we were in Wicked Creek. And he comes into Diplo office, is like, "Hey, do you guys sell caps?" And I'm like, yeah, we do sell caps. Do you need to buy one? He's like, yeah, I really need to buy one. I'm like, doesn't PFR sell caps? Can't you buy a cap from PFR? It's like, yeah, but I really need this right now. So you guys sell caps? I'm like, yep, we do. All right, can I buy an Archon? Sure, you can buy an Archon. 2.5 billion ISK. He goes, what? Like, well, you wanted to buy an Archon. This is the price for an Archon. It's like, isn't there somebody else that can sell me an Archon? I'm like, well, you're in a hurry, clearly, because you don't want to buy one from your own alliance, and you don't want to buy this one. So, you can sort of take it or leave it. And he was going into a wormhole, I guess, and he really needed to get an Archon in the next, 3 or 4 hours. And the dude bought, it was a fucking bulkhead-rigged Archon with no fuel or fit to pull into this wormhole for, 2.5 billion ISK. And, it sealed a chapter in my heart, and it made
And
me...
you got rid of him?
I got rid of him.
Aww.
That was my eat a dick moment. I was a little sad to part with. It was a gate camping Archon, and I was a little sad to part with it. But never not get twice the price of an Archon.
Let's ask the same question to. We haven't heard from Loriana. What's your favorite "fuck you, eat a dick" moment in diplomacy?
Oh, probably don't have moments like this, because I'm a very friendly person. I love everyone. Maybe it's real hard to believe, but even if a guy tells me, like, go fuck yourself or go die, I can just go fuck yourself and keep it calm. I don't need to do this. Just... And I'm rarely doing the diplo thing. That's the main thing. Maybe that's because I'm rarely doing diplo thing. Because I can't.
That's excellent. I'm glad to know that you're such a nice guy.
He's such a nice guy. He's like, hey, I'll just drink it. We'll be fine.
Oh, Twizzlespark. Twizzlespark? What's your example of a eat a dick moment?
I always try to refrain from eat a dick kind of thing. Sometimes it's okay in diplomacy to take that approach, but I personally prefer that more people would talk to me and actually share idea, rather than completely shutting off a contact like that. So that means I always try to be nice and respectful. Doesn't mean that I am so nice in a sense that I am going to stop myself from doing my work or conveying the message I'm trying to convey, but I don't think I really had any fuck you moment, except
oh, come on, fuck you. We all try to be nice.
Yeah,
give us the juice. Give us the juice. Give us the juice.
But I did have a lot of moments where I had to carry some tragic news to people. Like when we're moving into Delft, I had to tell some people that unfortunately they're gonna lose their home. But I am Twizzlespark, I am friendly, and you may talk to us and we can be friends.
Well,
make it sound like you're telling a dude he's got cancer. Like, come on. You gotta have every come on, every Diplo has that story.
Well, your story is a 2.1 billion ISK Archon, so you know, it's got to hear a little bit more there, Dran. You gotta step it up a notch.
Yeah, I mean, look,
in terms of twisting the knife. Well, wait, we haven't heard from Trigit yet. So Trigit, come on, fucking. Dran wants to hear a story, so to be a dick. Everybody here is nice, or they got an Archon story. So Trigit, have you been a dick to somebody as a Diplo?
Yeah, a few times. Let me tell you about a time back in Wicked Creek, and part 2 of this story actually happened in Fountain like 3 weeks ago. So the first part of the story, there's an alliance called Madhouse. Dran loves these people. He was super sad to see them leave Test Alliance and form this alliance called Madhouse. In Wicked Creek.
The dick story. Okay. this is where we're going. Okay.
Hey, you know, the death of an alliance. Why not, right? So, Madhouse decided that they were going to come down to Wicked Creek, and at that point in time, Iron was enthralled in an eviction attempt from Bastard Cartel and Manifesto towards us, with some smattering of other people. So Madhouse comes through, and they're like, "Hey, you guys are seemingly having good fights. We're going to help you out." So we start helping them out. Over the course of some time, through like FC channels and coordination channels and that kind of stuff, we realized that we really didn't like them, like as people. Like they just suck, right? Like one of my FCs makes like the most minor of mistakes, and they lose their fucking shit on him. So obviously relations are a little bit strained. We win the war. There's no longer an eviction thing. And we go to a situation of we're no longer blue, we are just a non-evasion pack. And they, God, this is over a mobile depot, you guys are going to laugh. So one of my pilots decided that he was going to make, on the entrance system to Iron's pocket, he made a sign of mobile depots that said Iron, and it was like 300 kilometers across. Well, Madhouse was chirping us in local, came and shot the sign of mobile depots, like a few of them. So we got mad and we formed up a fleet and we went and fought them. But the problem is that this also coincided with their defense fleet for some other thing. So we chased them and we tackled them and we started killing them, and then Fraternity came through and just wrecked them. And then Fraternity won the diplomatic timer, or sorry, not the diplomatic timer, the SOV timer because of it. And they blamed us. And they're like, you guys are aiding the enemy and helping evict us and blue, this and that and the other thing. And I just kind of calmly, it was one of those, wasn't like a fire and brimstone fuck you, but it was more like are you sure this is the route that you wish to take right now? And it was like, yeah, fuck you, Trigit, fuck you, Iron, fuck everything, fuck you. And we're like, are you sure? And they're like, yeah. And of course, at this point, I'm just like pouring gas onto the fire of like, are you really sure you want to talk to us like that? And then, yeah, evidently they did. And 48 hours later, they were gone.
So, by the way, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So I was just a little bit of a nose here. So, the part 2 of the story is that particular leader is no longer part of this alliance, obviously, and this alliance got evicted and they collapsed and everything. And some of the corporations, they moved forward, and it was different leadership, but the same group of people, but different leadership. And they were part of an alliance recently called Atlas. So fast forward a few months, and Atlas moves in beside Iron in Fountain, and so this was a very, very a good moment when I decided, okay, diplomatically, and you can attest to this, Twizzle. It's like, okay, so they're being installed here. They are doing so at the expense of my ally. I know we have past history with these guys. We don't really like each other, but I will extend the olive branch. We will have a non-evasion pact. So I made that with Atlas. I didn't make it with Atlas's little buddy alliances that came in with them. And because, I mean, their max nerd form is like 4 fucking dudes in fleet. Like, why the fuck would I even engage in that, right? So they, fast forward a few weeks, and Atlas is pretty pissed because we keep hitting their structures and killing their pilots and stuff like that. And we're showing no indication of letting up on that. And so Atlas CEO, who's a new person this time, comes to me in a conversation, and he basically says, I am the leader of this coalition, and I need you to recognize the standings between me and all of my allies together. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I'm not going to do that. And here's the reasons why. And I just listed them out for him. And he's like, okay, well, and I'm paraphrasing. He's like, in a show of solidarity to my allies, I am going to level all standings between everything, as in Atlas will now break and have no non-evasion pact with Iron. And I believe my words verbatim to him were, this could be very costly for you. Are you sure? And he said, yes, he's sure. And then a little bit later after that, my pilots are just like, can we kill him yet? Can we kill him yet? I'm like, no. They're here. They haven't done anything to us. We can't do anything. Then the little things started happening. They started cloak camping us. They killed our allies a little bit. They're poking Allied Sov. So finally I get a call again from their leader, and he says, okay, so in the best interest of everybody, let's go back to having diplomatic relations here and diplomatic relations there and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what do you mean the best for everybody? This sounds like the best for you. The best for Iron is going to be evicting you and taking your space and getting you out of here because you do not agree with what we want to do as an endgame for the region. And so he didn't really like that conversation too much, and we went to war probably like 3 days after that event, and then yeah, it lasted a little bit.
So, Mittens, you're not technically a diplomat, but I mean you're the Alliance CEO, so you have probably a situation where you've gotten to do this. And I ask you, what is your "fuck you, you're dead" moment? Like, eat a dick. Oh, you push talk, dude. Hey, you're not.
I have a lot of those.
Yeah, what's your favorite though? Gotta have your favorite.
Oh man. Well, I mean, Diplo stories for us are things like when we were first getting established in Declan, when TCF out of nowhere gave us the Declan couch.
Yeah.
We assassinated Black Core Alliance because they refused to go on an op with us to defend Declan, so we simply announced that they didn't have rights to exist there, which set off a huge drama in the Northern Coalition, because Goonswarm wasn't part of the Northern Coalition, but they kind of needed us, and we were sort of settling into Declan. Then there was that whole OWN thing, where OWN Alliance Test reached out to Montolio, and Dur Test strategically deployed Dur to lead the OWN Alliance leadership skillbook convoy and aid convoy. So it
Oh,
looked like
yeah.
Goonswarm had nothing to do with that, and just Test was going after Own. But we had asked Montolio to create that stink to result in Own then their leader like freaked out and faked a bunch of logs in a really ham-handed way and posted them on the Northern Coalition Facebook, I mean not Facebook, forums, got their asses basically kicked out of it. So the only people that remained with us, and Declan actually ended up being TNT, and they've been with us and close allies ever since. But they sort of won Declan Coalition Survivor. Then shit like the Bot Lord Accords, like that wasn't a fuck you moment, but that was a kind of thing where a diplomatic agreement basically affected the entire economy of the galaxy, and nobody who wasn't the leadership of PL or of the CFC at the time had a say in it. It was just like, okay,
it was at
well,
C2, right? Like the three of us.
yeah, and it was basically all of Botlord. It was negotiated through PL, but NC went along with it because that's how you ended up with the galaxy divided in two for the last phase of the Dominion mechanics. Let me think of a particular just go fuck yourself. There's been a lot of those. My favorite go fuck yourself actually I wasn't a CEO at the time. This is back in the days of the Great War, when the leader of Ascendant Frontier, Sivok, came to us when Bob was beginning to invade Askan territory in the southeast part of the galaxy. And Sivok had turned on little baby Goonswarm at the start of the Great War and her florfs about how we were so bad. And then Sivok came to Goonswarm when we were just after we had finished beating Laka Volterra with the Red Alliance and TCF. And Sivok came on bended knee to beg for assistance against Bandit Brothers, and we told him XZH never forget and to die in a fire, which he and his entire alliance promptly did.
See, that's the story we need right there. Hey, fuck you, die. That's what we're missing.
They got what they. I mean, the thing about diplomacy is, it's, at least from my perspective, is you got a long fucking memory. Like Dran is the lead diplomat of Test Alliance, and one of the things I wanted to ask was, were you around when Victor Villians was the lead diplomat of Test Alliance?
I was not. I was a catch baby, believe it or not. I don't know. I sort of stumbled into leadership. It wasn't something I'd ever was really out looking to do. But yeah, no. If it happened before Test and Brave did Hero 1.0, it was before my time, unfortunately.
That's probably a good thing. Victor was a piece of shit. So.
Yeah, no. My Diplomentor was Biggie. He was. I don't know anybody has ever had anything bad to say about him.
I think. I don't really know that guy. Generally, with Test diplomacy, I don't really do diplomacy anymore. Mainly, Villy pokes me over and over and over again on Discord. It's kind of cute. But yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where I think that we hear stories about diplomats that when they fuck something up really badly, when a diplomat is doing something well, you don't really hear about it, right? Because they're just doing their job and they're smoothing out conflicts or arranging deals or something like that. But a bad diplo in the wrong place at the wrong time, like Victor Villians, can ruin an entire alliance pretty fucking rapidly.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. Most 99.9% of the shit we do, nobody ever sees. During the course of this webcam chat, I've had 4 people hit me up about innocuous bullshit that nobody will ever know about. But it's it's the stuff that keeps alliances going, and it keeps people from stabbing each other over said innocuous bullshit.
Well, speaking of innocuous bullshit, Marana has just told me that Twizzlespark is allowed, if he feels like it, to tell stories about our dead allies if he wants to. So if you want to... actually, that is a question, because internal diplomacy, this is the thing that I should have asked about earlier, is that within the coalition of the Imperium and before that in the CFC, diplomats spent a lot of time doing what we call internal diplomacy, is just dealing with allies, primarily with allies almost, instead of external contacts. So Twizzle, maybe you can tell us a story about some of the stuff that we had to deal with, say, SMA, or now CO2, or FCON in the dead former allies bitches get stitches department.
So yeah, I guess that's something not a lot of diplomatic departments get to deal with because we used to and we still have a giant coalition that we manage in CD. Internal diplomacy is very different from external diplomacy in the fact that you are not only dealing with things that you would in external diplomacy, but you are kind of trying to make things work. Because that is also some things that dragged us down, in my opinion. Because like if CO2 is being uncooperative and they used to be really they used to make really petty and kind of stupid requests and decisions, and it's not the easiest thing to tell allies that if you don't like it, you have to get out of the coalition. So leading up to the casino war, I guess in their perspective, their main grudges was and the things that Gigex talked about when he betrayed us was that Zion, threatened them to, boot them from the coalition. But what they didn't tell you about is we used to have this moon allocation plan for Venal, and what we used to do was based on different metrics like participation or member count. We distributed the money moons in Venal region to all the allies, so we can have like fair income where nobody holds off. But the thing about Venal is that there's a lot of hostile MTC residents who would attack those posses when we deploy elsewhere.
Like Nink in Peru, yeah.
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 Out of sight.
And what so when we deploy, all those moons would get hit, and sometimes they get blown up. And what CO2 did was they would just retower all their moons for themselves. And when we came back from the deployment, and we asked them to return the POS to the original owner because, it's not their POS.
It was originally like a
Right.
Razor Moon or a Goonswarm Moon, and then CO2 would take it back from out of sight, would tower with the CO2 Moon, and they'd be complete douches about it, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's things like that. They were really selfish, and they were causing a lot of trouble for the coalition. It was difficult for CD because we kind of have to work around that if they want to be assholes. And we used to have a lot of hope that someday, if we give them all the love they need, maybe that they'll turn around, become CO2 like they joined us in the coalition. But no, they decided to go fuck goons.
Yeah, they definitely had a victimhood thing going on where they were being shitty and entitled, but they were shitty and entitled because they claimed that they were victims of who knows what.
My thing is with Diplos, and maybe you guys could test this. I don't think I've seen this with Mittens as much, but I do see it with a lot of other alliances where like they are an autocracy and have this one guy on top. Is that a Diplo will speak, and then the alliance CEO, who is off his fucking rocker, will come along and just ruin all that work. Like months of work that Diplos will put into a relationship, and the CEO comes along and goes, "Fuck you." This happened most famously with Test, where the Test CEO had, they had good relations with us, and they were living in Fountain, and had a great quiet home. And then Montolio comes along and goes, "Fuck you, Dad. I'm nuts, and I'm gonna ruin everything we've ever had." So that's just how I view crazy. And have you guys ever encountered that where you do all this work and then CEO comes along and just fucks it all up?
Yup.
I like it.
Yup. That you're right. That does happen. I've encountered that with most recently an alliance some people may know named Army New Eden. I had a deal going with Army's head Diplo there, and we had everything locked down and ready to go. And then Pants Fan, sorry, not Pants, I'm an idiot. It was the guy who ran fucking FCon. What's his name?
Tarquinius.
Tarquinius decided to came through and basically shut it down and did the whole thing from a side angle, and he didn't know what was going on, and it ended up working out very poorly for his own little coalition member who was Army at the time. And that was the deal that we were negotiating was we were going to sell them a whole bunch of assets, and Tarquinius just came through and said, no, this is not going to happen. And then Tarquinius was like, yeah, we're going to take the space and we're not going to pay you for it and all this kind of stuff. So I was like, okay, well, fuck you. And I flipped everything to Fraternity, and they still own it.
That's good. Yeah, it is really annoying because, like, if you do that as a leader, you undermine your diplomats. Like, the entire point of having diplomats that you trust is that they can make deals on behalf of your alliance. So if you don't back the word of your diplos, then it undermines their authority, and nobody can trust the deal. So we were talking about GigX a few minutes ago. GigX would be notorious for flipping tables. I mean, from what I understand, Dran had a couple of fun experiences with GigX. We heard some CO2 stories from Twizzle. Dran, why don't you tell us, if you can, anything about your experiences with CO2? What was that like? What you got?
You got a very interesting definition of the word fun.
I hear that a lot.
No, it was dealing with CO2 was its own kind of thing. You would talk to one person, and they'd tell you something, and it would seem perfectly reasonable, and you'd think it was done, and then GigX would come crashing through the room and just, I don't know, potato, vodka, polar bear, and then everything's ruined, right? I can't even. It's not just one specific. It was everything. I am very blessed in that Sapo is too goddamn high most of the time to undo anything that I do, and that's fantastic. But they really didn't have those blessings over in CO2.
What was it like from a test perspective when the judge handed us CO2's head on a platter?
Well, my first reaction was, what? Right? Like, who's trolling me? Because there's no way that was going to happen. And then, we sent somebody out there to go verify it, right? And then Recon comes back and is like, yeah, that's a Goon Keepstar. We're just, that's a Goon Keepstar. It was very surprising, and it was, you play through scenarios, right? When something happens, and you go, okay, well, there's this war. If we side this way, we might, and we win, this is what happens. If we side this way and we lose, this is what happens. If we side with these people, maybe these people turn around the other way and, things get messy. But, that's just one of those scenarios that nobody even threw out as a crazy thing that could happen. And you just got to roll with the punches. I think the first thing we did was hit up you guys and was like, so that's a nice Keepstar you have there. Maybe there's a story attached to it.
Yeah.
And that's what diplomats do, right? That's, figure out what the fuck just happened and what are we going to do about it.
Who do you mostly talk to in Goonstorm anyway? I should know this, but I don't actually keep track of which diplos are assigned to which org.
Well, it's Twiz when he doesn't have homework or is dying of cancer or whatever. Otherwise, whatever makes him, disappear for weeks at a time. But yeah, usually Twiz will get things done for me. He's a good dude.
Sweet.
So wow, we've spent 50 minutes talking to Diplos. It's been great.
Well,
I'm so glad.
We have a Diplo episode, and we're having.
Yeah. So here's a quick question. This is part of our next segment, but we don't need to get to that segment to ask this question. Going into the PanFam vs DRF Keepstar timer that was going down on Monday, the final timer. Where was testing this? You guys, of course, have worked with DRF before, but where were you in the grand scheme of things?
What do you mean in terms of who are we supporting?
Yeah, where did you go? Did you plan on going? Who were you working with? What was the talks like going into that?
Well, I mean, we do support our allies in the DRF, and I mean, it was a fairly once they had formed as much as they had, it was a fairly obvious blue ball. I'm not particularly involved in military. I'm not sure when the decision was made to, not send people over there because there wasn't going to be a fight. But I'm sure if there was a fight, we would have been right there at the precipice of it.
Interesting. I know normally we don't get into the diplomatic discussions on where we stand on things, but what was it like for you two as like going into that whole mess? I mean, all of EVE was hyping that. I think Pandemic Court hyped it for a week. Did anyone approach you, or us, I should say, as a diplomat, and be like, hey, you guys going to come get in on this? Where are you on this?
Sometimes as a diplomat, I always try to provide as much fun for the members. I try not to restrict a lot of things for FCs. But sometimes you just gotta sit back and watch what happens, right? Because our public #1 rule regarding Russian diplomacy is that you stay out of it when you can. There's a lot of different connections and grudges relating to that whole Keepstar story, and we kind of decided to stay out of it as an alliance and a coalition. But yeah, there was a lot of people naturally who wanted to side with this guys, or they wanted to bring over fleet and like drop things on the other guys. But examining real data, and this is sometimes the most important thing you have to do as a diplomat, is when people get really emotional and they ask for things, you want to look at the real data and examine if it actually has any validity. We looked at .land and we kept track of what's going on, and we kind of knew in like almost like a week that nothing is actually going to happen in that side of the universe, so we just didn't care. Like when you hear about like all these big talks and emotions, but little to no change in actual game, then it's not going to go anywhere, and that's exactly what happened.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
well, we are almost running out of time here, so let's hit a couple more things, and then we can call it a show.
Yeah, so for the nullsec power hour, we're not going to do the transition right at a time. We only have 4 minutes, but there's some things happening, and I want to take a moment to bring light to it. Alpha clones are here. They're fully upgraded all the way up to Macarials, Nightmares. They can use T2 medium guns, and where you're starting to see this as a player impact the economy of the game is this great article here about alpha clones and incursions. Incursions usually require battleships and then logi, and now you can do them with alpha clones, and it's seen a rise in the way to make money through alpha clones. That's
a good question for our diplomats. I mean, so CCP has released this big patch, and suddenly alpha clones can do everything. Has anybody, just chime in here, have any of you guys seen like an uptick in actual new players using alpha clones since this arms race patch hit the other day?
We've seen a few. There's been a bit of a influx in new players in our new player friendly corps and programs. But largely, it's really more just people being more likely to use their older accounts as something useful. Somebody who a better vet has 5, 6, 7, old subcap capable pilots, and now they'll just kind of plant them around everywhere, and log them in and be able to actually do something useful with them. It's really not as much as I thought it was going to be, and I'm kind of disappointed in it, to be honest.
Let's see. How about you, Trisha? Are you guys seeing any more alpha clones over there?
No, and the reason why is we don't engage in alpha clone activity, so we wouldn't see it either way.
Reasonable, Loriana.
Some old guys returned because of free play with their battleships, but there is no new players in alpha clones. I doubt it will help with any alpha new member. It's just a way for old members to try this game again and see how bad it is.
Well, hopefully it'll make some sort of impact. I mean, from a Goonswarm perspective, like it's hard to say. We do have a lot of UV organizations, but one of my concerns, and I think one of the business concerns in this, is you have a successful subscription model game, and if sure everybody can come back and fly, like they can bring back their old characters, but I am curious to see from a money-making perspective. I mean, we all want CCP to make money to keep the servers on, so if it ends up being a feature that pretty much only veteran players use to not keep their accounts subbed, I mean, that's a worry of mine, but we just don't have the data.
Well, I mean, we are starting to see people use ways to make money. I think things like VNIs that were really good for making money for a new player are now being used on alpha clones because they're easy to train into. So I'm just worried. I mean, we haven't seen evidence of this. Jay Mazins, who does our write-ups and helps point us in the direction, has just found that it really hasn't stuck. Like, you haven't seen a gigantic upswing like you would expect, especially from bigger alliances who could use this to their great advantage, And you're not seeing that. For example, the Daily Alpha Injector, there hasn't been many reports of people actually using this scam. For those that don't know, the Daily Alpha Injector, if you use all 30 days of it, ends up costing more than a Plex. So at the end of the day, it's more expensive. But you buy it on a day-to-day basis, and it lets you train your skills like you're an Omega. It gives you a bunch of free skill points. But people aren't using it, and the reports from that are very slim. And then one last thing before we go, because we're out of time here, is the last little bit is Mercenary Coalition donated a Keepstar to the Space Boat. Apparently this was a move by MC to bring light to the Broadcast for Reps movement. And they did this as a donation. You can read all about this here. But I heard a lot of people in EVE. I was gone all week, but I heard a lot of anger came about from this. From MC just giving away a Keepstar. Because that Keepstar was originally, I believe, part of the whole Care for Kids Keepstar network that was given to MC to use by PL and NC and all that. So if they did give it away to Space Pope, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really cool. The Sixth Empire is a great group. They focus on Broadcast for Reps and sort of assisting EVE players in need. So I think that's a cool thing. Like, Care for Kids stuff was always just a full of shit bullshit charity. We called that out repeatedly on the Meta Show. But everybody knows and loves the Space Pope, Maximilian Singularity, the sixth, first of his name, the True Emperor, is an icon and an inspiration to all EVE players. So credit where it's due. High fives all around to MC for that donation. So yeah, good on Celine.
Pretty awesome. Okay, yeah, we're out of time. Thank you, everyone. Our Russian friend here, Loriana, Dran, Tridget, and Twizzlespark. And quick shout-outs. We were one whole segment there, so we didn't really get the shout-outs. But Socksmon for 24 months. Ingress for 15 says, Hail Satan. Esther Kitarius just subscribed. Thank you very much. Artawi for 9 months says, hi, guys. Scooter McCabe, 26 months, says, can I and Delightful Russian say, or have the Delightful Russian say, I would have liked to have seen Montana, because he's really awesome. I don't know if he wants to do that.
Can you say I would have liked to have seen Montana, Loriana?
Я бы хотел увидеть Монтану.
He did it in Russian too. That's even better. I love it. I'm using username
for Red October. Good stuff.
Yes, it's a great movie. Has subscribed for a month, and then Celine for Saln Iludlo for 2 months. So thank you very much. And then we had a guy just subscribed now. Doom
Arcade 3. Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Yeah, but it's been a great time. Oh, also news. Barring fires in California, this is my last Meta Show for a while, because I'll be in Australia for a month and a half. So this is
well then that's
vanishing.
Bad.
Wait, why
I'm
is
gonna
that?
have to hold down the fort.
Yeah, you're gonna have to like somehow.
Actual responsibility. That's
I know.
Tough. Boat handles so much of the things that happen on the Meta Show. Props where it's due here. So brace yourself, guys. The next few weeks, we'll have to see how things go.
It's great because Delta only has one flight that goes to Sydney one day out of the whole country. So it's like I'm watching that flight going, okay, I'm gonna fly this day, and it'll be like either from Monday to Saturday. I'll decide when I leave, and I haven't decided yet. So. Yeah, but I'll be back, and we'll have Meta shows. And
enjoy the trip, boat.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming here, guys. And we will catch you next week. And I will do my best to hold down the fort in Boat's absence.
Yep. Later, everyone.
Cool. Thanks for
guys.
having us on.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen.